All right. Welcome back, my regular viewers, listeners, and watchers. And of course, if you happen to be here for the very first time, welcome. Before I go any further, my name is Rahul George, India's premier iHypnosis life healer coach and your personal guide. As I was getting ready for today's pod, I was reflecting on the conversation that I had with my community earlier today. And one of the really powerful themes that emerged was everything to do with the norm. In this world that we live in, it's so easy to get caught up in, you know, what's right or what should be the thing to do versus, tapping into who we truly are and what we really believe in. Now, on the surface, I'm sure that makes sense to you in some sense, but as I was getting ready for the pod, I said, you know what? It's not entirely that, because if you really think about it, it is about asking yourself the question, is it about refining the norm or defining, or shall we say, refining, defining, or defying the norm? Now, I'm sure you've been here before, where depending on when you started, maybe as a teenager or a little later, you decided to defy the norm. So maybe people told you to be a certain way, but somehow you saw yourself as the rebel, and so you chose to defy the norm. Some of us started earlier in life. Some of us definitely, did it in our teens, maybe even our 20s or 30s. And so, if you think about your own life and you remember the times when you defied the norms, I'm sure you know that it wasn't easy until, of course, you reached that point where you were able to do it a little more effortlessly. Now, on the other hand, if you think about refining um, the norm, maybe that's something also to think about, which means when you ask yourself the question, okay, why is it that we're doing things a certain way? Why is it that people behave a certain way in certain, let's say, social situations? And when you actually start to ask the question, you will probably realize that originally there was a reason for it, but now along the way we've kind of forgotten why we do certain things. In fact, earlier today we were talking about death and loss, and how typically, someone will say, oh, I'm sorry for your loss. Now, on the surface, it may sound like polite conversation, but on the other hand, you may be the person who says, I didn't cause it, and what is the point of saying, I'm sorry for your loss? So I guess the question then really is to ask yourself, which is, what is it that you really want to tell the person? It could be as simple as saying, I just want you to know that I'm here for you. And maybe a couple of days later, you repeat the same question where maybe you meet them or you call them up and just check in on them and remind them that, hey, you know what? Especially at this time in your life, I just want you to know that I'm here for you. A lot of times that itself can be like refining the norm, or maybe even defying the norm, because most people will kind of throw a whole bunch of platitudes and tell you how sorry they are, or tell you how you should be stronger, you should be there for your family, and so on and so forth. So just something to think about. And I'm sure if you kind of extend this example, you'll find that in many areas of our life, there are these norms of stereotypes of things that we should do, whether it is gender stereotypes, whether it is vocational stereotypes. But when we actually start to pay more attention and we start to ask questions, of course, it's not necessarily got to do with defying, because defying also takes a lot of energy. And instead, if you just start with this inquiry, you might surprise yourself. Of course, as always, these pods are made in service of you, and the intent is to be able to give you that food for thought, especially as a healer, especially as a coach. And that my intention, of course, is that these thoughts can be with you, these thoughts can go with you, so that tomorrow when you're doing this work with your clients, with the people in your community, you're able to maybe get them to ask these questions that are important in their own life. And as I said, these pods are made in service of you. So if there's any way in which I can help you, please do reach out and let me know. And of course, as always, remember to live your purpose. God bless. And of course, I will be back with another pod. One final thing, of course, before we go, a reminder that we are getting ready for our retreat, the iHypnosis Life Transformations Retreat. So if you happen to be watching this before the 14th of November 2025, and if you've been thinking about going away for a while and being with a group of like-minded healers and coaches and seekers, then definitely reach out and let me know. Of course, depending on where you're seeing this, whether you're watching live or whether you're seeing this on one of our channels, you will get more information there. And I'd love to hear more questions from you. And we are having a couple of open houses as well, where you get to meet me live and you can ask your questions live as well. Having said all of that, of course, as always, remember to live your purpose. God bless, and of course, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.